Welcome to Dare to Speak, difficult conversations that can change everything. This is a place for you to bring those difficult conversations that you've been mulling over, that you've been thinking about while you've been walking around, doing the washing up or commuting to work. I'm Eve Stanway. I am a philosopher, psychotherapist of 25 years, divorce and breakup coach, and I help people in the moments where there's a difficult conversation they just don't know how to handle. This is a moment, your moment, to pause, reflect, and have a bit of breathing space to think about what matters to you and how to tackle those difficult moments. Using insight, reflection, case studies, and examples, I will guide you through those difficult conversations in a safe and constructive way. So let's begin. Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Dare to Speak, difficult conversations that can change everything. So today I am going to do a special episode on how we talk to children about separation and divorce. It comes up an awful lot during my work when I'm helping fathers and men, as well as women and families, negotiate the tricky terrain of how we tell our children that we're getting a divorce, but also how those ongoing conversations continue to happen. Because the key aspect of this is understanding that what we're doing is that we're setting up a series of conversations. We're not just having a kind of one and done and then it's over. So in this episode, I'm going to look at 4 key areas about separation and how we share information in a way that really works for children, whatever the age they're at. Now, what I want to start with is by saying that when we're talking about telling our children that we're getting a divorce or we're separating, most people who are in this situation have no idea what's going to happen next. They don't know. They don't know what it's going to look like. They may or may not know at that stage what's caused the separation, because the reality is when people are getting divorced, what tends to happen is that more information comes out throughout the process, and definitely the court process of going through a divorce or a separation is so long and protracted. Lots happens in the meantime. You know, people will be looking at moving, changing schools. Maybe children actually are changing schools. When I went through my separation and divorce, we moved from my daughter being at junior school to being into secondary school. For people listening in other parts of the world, she was about 11 years old. So she was making a transition from one place to another. And so what that means is throughout the course of the separation and divorce, even now to both my children being adults, we've had to have different conversations along the way. And the conversation is needed to have gone back to it again and again and again. So the way that we speak to our children during separation and divorce through any part of it. And what's really interesting about this conversation is, for example, when I was going through my divorce, I also had to talk to some of my children's friends about what was happening. Because occasionally a child might say, well, what's going on? Doesn't his dad live here anymore? I also had to answer questions from my children however they showed up. And sometimes those questions weren't about me and the other parent. They were about the wider family. Are we still going to see a grandparent? Are we still going to be able to go to that event that some cousins were having or a birthday party? What would it mean? So one of the first things that I would say is there is a common view that we should protect our children with silence, that we need to shield them from what is going on. And the thing about children, and I would say this to all of you, first of all, generally speaking, children's hearing is much, much better than our hearing. What that means is, and I remember this from being a kid when my parents got divorced, maybe you remember it. Do you remember sitting on the stairs listening to your parents having a conversation about something downstairs? It could have been moving house, getting a pet, what you were going to get for Christmas or birthdays, whatever it might have been. Children have an uncanny ability to hear what is relevant or what's happening. They might not make sense of it, and very often they don't. But children can hear, and they are paying attention. We might be having a phone conversation. We've tucked the kids up to bed and we're on the phone with our friend complaining or worrying about what's going on. And we're not realizing that our voices have carried far enough that our children can hear what's going on. So if we act from the assumption that our kids have an idea of what's going on, then the way that we communicate with them is really, really important. I need to tell you about some changes that are happening. Ideally, we'd like to be able to do it with both parents together. In my experience in the last 25 years of doing this, I'm not sure how necessary that is. And I think sometimes when we've got both parents trying to kind of herd everything into that particular conversation, it doesn't necessarily give kids what they need. Because sometimes what happens is one or other parent is feeling emotional or a bit shut down or a bit maybe conflicted actually about what the conversation is going to be like. So what happens is it becomes uncomfortable. And then what happens is the child is less likely to come back, or they're likely to come back to one parent and talk about what's going on, but they may be unlikely to talk to the other parent about it. And those conversations, when they happen, tell the child whether or not it's okay to continue the conversation. It is very, very common that when you tell a child that you're getting a divorce or separating, they don't say anything at all. And for some parents, I've heard them say, they was like, oh, it was a massive sigh of relief. They took it really well. But the thing is, we don't know how they took it. Having spoken to many, many adults in my life whose parents got divorced, they didn't necessarily take it very well. They may have been shocked, they may have been startled, they may have been upset, they may have not known what to say next. And if it wasn't really, really clear from the adults concerned that the conversation was going to continue, the child might very easily think, oh, well, I don't want to make mum or dad upset, so I'm not going to say any more. And what that does is it leaves the kid or the child in a state of uncertainty. And uncertainty is actually one of the most stressful situations. So if you imagine you're on the train or you're in a traffic jam and you don't know what's causing the delay, the uncertainty about when you'll arrive and how long you'll be delayed and what's going on is the bit that is stressful. A better thing to do is say to children, I've got some news, and it's really difficult news. I'm getting a divorce from your other parent, or we're going to be separating, or we're going to be living together for a while, but we're not really going to be together. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be okay because we're going to work together to make sure that everybody is okay. And we can say to a child, really at any age, not the really young ones, but certainly any that are older, you'll have noticed it's been very tense. You'll have noticed that we've been arguing a lot more. It's been really uncomfortable. You may have noticed that we've been trying poorly. We haven't done a very good job of it to not bring you into our conversations, but you might have felt that nonetheless. Now you're going to know this is why this is happening. This is what's going on. And we don't know what's going to happen next. But what we'll do is we'll communicate it really well. We've both got help and support, so we're not going to lean on you emotionally, and we will do everything we can during this process to allow your lives to continue as smoothly as possible. I want you to imagine if you were getting, I don't know, say you were getting a conservatory or something, or a building, you were getting an extension to your house, but you were going to have to live in the house while it was going on. You wouldn't know how long it's going to take or what the impacts are going to be. But what you would want is the people who were building the extension to make the impacts as little as possible. And that is what we need to aim for when we're talking to children about separation and divorce. The aim is to make the impact on the child of the changes that are going to happen as little as possible, so that the child can, they might have exams, they might be moving school, they might be going through their own difficult relationships, they might have a lot of adjustment going on. And our role as parents is not to protect our children by shielding them with a lack of knowledge. Our role as parents is to protect our children by shielding them, by taking ownership and responsibility for our role, which is we're the ones getting a divorce, we're the ones separating, we are the ones who haven't made our relationship with the other person work. So we are the ones that need to shoulder all the burden of dealing with that in a way that our children won't feel. That is our job as parents. I always think about the penguins in the Antarctica, protecting the little ones from the storms. That is our job as a parent. It isn't to stop the storm. We can't stop the storm. But what we can do is really put our back to the door to ensure that children are impacted as little as possible. That doesn't mean no impacts. There will be impacts. Divorce means there will be less money, there will be different housing arrangements, there will be different living arrangements, there might be different people. All of these things are going to happen. But the question is how we try and shield our children from that as much as possible. So the second thing I want to say is the language of reassurance. Reassuring. People can behave really badly during separation and divorce. There's definitely, we see a lot of that going on. But actually, both parents still loving their child is very normal. There's often a real disagreement in relationships about the way we show love to our children. Some parents are definitely much more empathic than the other. That's so common. I see it all of the time. But the reassurance is knowing that the love that a parent has for the child does continue. A parent's ability to look after that child or meet that child's needs is not connected to love. And I would say this is important in all relationships. It's very, very common, and I've been 25 years, anybody who's listening to this knows I've been doing it a long time. Loving somebody and knowing how to give them what they need, how to look after them is a different thing. Their dogs' homes are full of rehomed dogs, and they had owners that loved the dog but just couldn't look after them. And so the language of reassurance is the language of being able to say, separation is not the fault of the child. And that can be really hard because often children can see that their behaviour has caused an emotional outburst in a parent. So it's really natural why children blame themselves. And we as parents, I know I've done it, we will blame our children. We will say, we're not blaming them for the divorce, I don't mean that. But we might say, I'm trying to get this done, but I can't because you keep interrupting me. What that's doing is letting the kid know that their needs is causing you a problem. And children feel like they're to blame for separation and divorce very often. We have to be really continuous and say it again and again that they are not to blame. It doesn't mean they're not annoying at times and they don't interrupt us and cause problems, but they're not to blame for the separation and divorce. We also, and this is very important, and I know that every single person who's a parent, loyalty is a big factor. Children are naturally loyal to their parents. They may feel more loyal to one parent or another. That's natural anyway. Children play favourites with their parents, there's no doubt about it, because one parent is what they need in one situation and one parent is what they need in another situation. That's why having two parents is really useful. But when we're asking questions like, well, do you want to go and live with daddy? The child might feel really put on the spot. So when we say things instead like, well, we're going to work this out in a way that allows everybody to spend time with everybody else as much as they need, that makes it a little bit easier for the child to deal with. Crucial. This is so crucial. every conversation that we have with a child about separation, divorce, or, for instance, about drugs or sex or relationships or anything really, every conversation I teach all of the parents that I work with and all of the people I work with, every conversation is part of a series of conversations, just as this episode is part of a series of episodes. It is really important that we make it part of a series because of this crucial factor. Children go through a wide range of developmental phases as they're growing. The child that you tell age 10 that you're getting a divorce will have a completely different understanding of what they've been through and the changes and the impacts in their lives when they're 13, when they're 16, when they're 26, when they're 46. Because the way that humans grow is there's a kind of continuation of experience that we're learning from, we are processing, we're trying to understand, we're trying to put it together. And as we shift through our lives and as we grow and develop, we look back on the experiences, as I know you do. You can do this right now. You might have, when you were a kid and you went on holidays, it all seemed just like marvellous because you didn't realise all the planning and organisation and cost and packing and logistics involved. And now that you're a parent, you know about all of that. So it's very, very normal with humans. It's the way our brain works. It's a neural net that means that we are always evolving and gathering information. And that means that when we're having a conversation with a child about what happened during the breakdown of a marriage or anything, actually, in the child's life, we need to think about it as a series of conversations and make it really overt, like say it to the children. I expect to talk to you again and again and again and again about this. So, yeah, let's start here. But this is only the beginning. And then I think the fourth thing, and I'm going to come back to this subject many times over in episodes on this podcast, but the fourth thing I would say is what children need to see as well as hear. So, there's that phrase, actions speak louder than words. Well, it's very easy to tell somebody to do something and not do it yourself. I can tell you this, having spent years and years being a coach and a psychotherapist, as well as a mother and all the other things that I am. It's very easy for me to tell somebody to do something but not be able to do it myself. And an awful lot of my life is spent really drilling down, for me, learning how to have these difficult conversations and thinking about the ways I did it and the ways I got it wrong, because I did get it wrong. And this is not about getting it right. This is about getting it wrong and then demonstrating your ability to kind of catch when you get it wrong, notice what's happened, have another go, do it better. Because what children need to see is not perfection. Weirdly, if children see what looks like perfection, all that happens is they feel that there's an unattainable bridge between where they are and where you are. And that can be kind of off-putting for them and make them feel that they can never be good enough. That is not a license to make catastrophic mistakes deliberately in front of the kid again and again and be complacent about it. But leadership, when we're thinking about these conversations, is really important. Being able to say, I am interpreting what the other person has said, but it may be different from what they are thinking. Leadership is elevating the conversation, like trying to have a better conversation, not a worse one. Leadership is the ability to adjust, to know when it's too much, or not to hide because somebody looks like they received the information really well. And so you think, no, I don't need to go back. They've done it. Phew, I've done that conversation. Because we need to be able to go back at it again and again and again in a calm way. Leadership is being able to keep on the topic and not turn it into a bigger thing, because humans have only got, we can only really take in so much input. That's why I keep my episodes short. And how we listen, how we stick to the same subject. I'm going to talk to you about something really important. Your other parent and I have decided that we are no longer working very well together. And so we need to find a different way of raising you and parenting you. And we think we'd do better if we weren't together. But we will always be together in the sense that we're always going to be your parent, but we are going to need to do it from different spaces, different homes, different lives. And so we're going to start implementing that. We're going to get divorced or we're going to separate, but we're going to do it in a way that makes your life carry on as it was before. The more that we can do that, every conversation we have is the template that our child will use going forwards in their life for their own difficult conversations, for their own difficult decisions, for the times when they will need to lead, when they will need to show that ability to act according to their own values and their own needs and their own wishes. So this is a little touch on how do we talk to children about separation and divorce. There are loads and loads of resources on my website. I have got a course, Navigating with the Heart, which is available in my community, which you can buy the whole course. You can listen to it or watch it at your own time. It's got a lot of really useful PDF downloads. And I think I've got another course on there, which is about how to have difficult conversations. I've recently done a webinar talking to children about separation and divorce, which will also be on the web, on my website, into my community, available if you want to have a go with that. If this is something you're going through right now, please do reach out, DM me, put a comment in the chat, something like that, and I will do my best to help and support you. In my Dare to Speak community, which is throwing open its doors very shortly, there is a space there where I'll be putting more and more resources about separation and divorce. There's my cat. Come and say hello. This lets you know that it's live. She's out searching for the birds. But anyway, thank you so much for your time today. If this has been useful, please like, share, comment, and I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Take care and goodbye.